Hey guys, it's Q&A Thursday. I have some really great questions for you today that are about two different subjects. The subjects are pregnancy and an exercise that can be done as the belly expands and the baby gets bigger. So that's one question. We'll answer that at the end. The first two questions I'll quickly answer, and they're related to prolapse. So the first question is about prolapse and wearing jeans that are too tight. Can that make your prolapse worse? And the second question is about how prolapse changes throughout the month. But I wanted to just quickly share, has anybody ever tried cinnamon water before? See, that's a cinnamon stick at the bottom. It's so good. You should try it. If you have not tried it already, it's incredible. I learned this little trick when I was in Thailand at a yoga retreat training that I went to about a year and a half ago. It was meant to increase the yang, like the masculine energy, sort of the powerful energy in our bodies when we were drinking it. And I don't know if it does that, but you know what? It feels fantastic. It's really a new flavor profile on water, and it kind of has a sweetness that can really help to reduce cravings, I've found. And that's actually been shown in the literature anyway. Try cinnamon stick water. Okay, so to the questions. The first question is about, I want to talk about the prolapse and the jeans, whether or not tight jeans can make prolapse worse. So this is a really interesting question. I got it from a FemFusion friend who said that she has noticed that on days when she wears tight jeans, her prolapse seems to be worse the next day. So she said, could this be possible? And I said, yes, it could. Because actually, some people have found that when they wear abdominal binders after pregnancy, the binders or the belts that kind of keep everything together after having a baby, if they're fitting incorrectly, and if they're kind of cinching everything in at the waist, that can actually cause a downward pressure on the pelvic organs. So I'm not saying abdominal binders post-pregnancy are bad or good. In some cases, binders can be good, and tight things can be good to kind of keep everything together. But if they're fitting in a way such that the pressure down is kind of cinching in and then pressing things down, then that can absolutely make prolapse worse. So yeah, jeans could do the same thing. If they're really, really tight, especially if the waistband is maybe a little bit higher and they're real tight at the waistband and kind of pressing in and down, that's not so good. What we want to feel is more of a lift up. So I said to the gal, maybe you want to try unbuttoning your top button and see if that makes a difference. Just a thought. That's my A to her Q about jeans and prolapse. She also, in the same question, asked if there's anything she can do to kind of gravity defy her pelvic organs throughout the day. And I said the main thing is really just posture. I've talked about posture before. I harp on it a lot. But you want to make sure that you're not slouching and slumping. And what do many of us do throughout the day? We sit. And so when you sit, it's real easy to kind of slouch, to let your upper body fall in as you're typing or talking on the phone, to let your head jut forward. And all of these things, if you just play with that for a second and feel the effect, the downward pressure on your pelvic organs when you do this, you'll feel it. You should try it right now. Stand like I'm standing. It's awful on your pelvic organs. They're just like, bleh. So, you really want to stand tall. You want to keep lifted through the front, slightly lengthened through the back, but not tucked under. And you want your head to be pulled back, your shoulders to be back. And that's for standing and also for sitting. When you're sitting in a chair, make sure that your head is over your shoulders and your hips, rather than your head forward and your bum tucked under as you're slouching in your office chair. The next question about prolapse is related to, can it change throughout the month, or can it be different at different times? And the answer is yes, actually. For many people, they'll notice that their prolapse seems worse toward the end of their menstrual cycle. So if you understand the menstrual cycle, you know that during ovulation is a really cool time. Ovulation is when you're most fertile. And it's actually been shown that your cervix, which is the bottom of your uterus, is at its highest point for most people during ovulation. So it's highest up in your body. And I kind of think of that as your body's natural way of allowing for, sex. It's sort of your body's way of allowing room for sex to happen and procreation to happen. It's the most fertile time, and your cervix does tend to be higher at that time. Then when you are in the second half of your cycle, and if you're not pregnant, your uterus is actually getting heavier because it's been building up tissue inside the uterus to, prepare for a baby. But when you are not pregnant and you end up having your menstrual cycle, your menstruation time, the uterus sheds that lining. And so if you think about it, your uterus is lowest toward the end of the menstrual cycle, toward the end of the 28-day cycle. Typical 28-day cycle. They're not always 28 days, but it's heavier because it's full, and then it starts shedding that lining at the end of the menstrual cycle. So it's a natural course of events that the cervix and the uterus are highest during ovulation, and then they get lower and lower as the uterus gets heavier and heavier and starts shedding its lining during menstruation, and then the cycle continues again. So really fascinating, and it might be worth it for you to kind of track and see how it works with your body and your hormonal dance, which is different for every woman, but at the same time, it's similar for every woman. And you may notice that correlation with your prolapse symptoms if you have prolapse. Let's talk about pregnancy now. The last question was from a dear person in my life who is pregnant right now. And she said that she wants to do something because she feels, I think she's about 17 weeks along, and she feels that the baby is starting to really, there's some stretching happening already and some weakening that she's starting to already feel. And she says, oh my gosh, I don't really know what to do because I don't want this to just sort of go bleh. But at the same time, I don't want to overwork those muscles because, when you're pregnant, things will stretch. In fact, some sources say that 100% of women will develop the diastasis recti, the split in the two six-pack abdominal muscles and the stretching of the connective tissues underneath. Some sources say that 100% of women will get that during pregnancy. It's just going to happen. Now, it comes back for many women. It doesn't remain. But either way, stretching happens. It's part of the process. But what can she do to kind of minimize and keep her core strength up while not overworking? So I told her to go and stand up next to a wall, 3 times throughout the day, maybe 2 or 3 times, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, for example. Stand up against a wall with your bum and your shoulders against the wall and your feet about 6 inches in front of the wall. So you're kind of leaning into the wall just a little bit. I can't really demonstrate it right here, but just picture you're kind of leaning into a wall, resting into the wall. And then lift your pelvic floor and tuck your tail under and lengthen the spine. So this is going to lift the core from the pelvic floor and the lower belly. It's going to lift baby. It's going to lift everything as you exhale. So it's a tuck and a lift through the core muscles and an exhale. And then inhale, release, and exhale. Lift the pelvic floor, pull in the low belly, exhale. And then again, inhale, release, expand, exhale, tuck and lift, and exhale, inhale, release. You get the idea. So essentially, again, you're flattening your low back into the wall as you lift the pelvic floor and core muscles and exhale. So this is a really cool move because you're, first of all, releasing those low back muscles, which can get really tense and tight when you're pregnant and maybe your posture is starting to change because baby's starting to pull everything forward. It can make it really easy for your bum to start to really stick back, and these muscles can get really tight. So releasing those muscles is really key at the wall, but it also helps to strengthen in a gentle fashion the pelvic floor and the abdominal muscles, and also ties in the breath, the relaxation as you inhale. You just sort of let everything go and release, and then the contraction as you engage the core muscles and your diaphragm raises up just a bit. So it's a very cool kind of fully integrated full body motion, stretches the back, strengthens through the front. I love it. And I told her to do maybe 10 to 15 of those reps with the breath and the motion 2 to 3 times a day. And that's a wonderful way just to keep those core muscles activated in a gentle fashion that's not going to harm baby. In general, core fitness does not harm baby, but I just want to make that clear that this is a very safe move. And also, it's a way to, again, feel comfortable throughout the day because you do get back pain when you're pregnant. That is my A's to the Q's, and I want to just thank everyone who writes in. Keep sending questions my way, and I'll do my best to answer. If you like what you see here, be sure to subscribe to my channel. And until next time, eat clean, move every day, and you will shine brighter.